Advanced Math ladies, this is lesson 1.3 part A. We did this last semester in Advanced Math 1 where we dealt with complex numbers, and if you remember, complex numbers have two parts. They have a real part plus an imaginary part. The real part is just some number, and the imaginary number has a certain number of eyes. These two cannot be combined, they have to be left separate. If you notice on number 7 in the lesson, it says to take the numbers like -4 and tell them whether they are real, complex, pure imaginary, or non-real complex. More than one of those will apply. -4 is a real number, and it is also a complex number because it can be written as -4 plus 0i. Number 10 has -7i, so that is a complex number, but it is also a pure imaginary because it has no real part to it. If you look at number 14, it has the square root of 24, and if you remember from factor trees, that's 2 times 12, which is 2 times 6. For every 2 we take out 1, so that's 2 times the square root of 6. That is a real number, and it is a complex number because we could have 2 times the square root of 6 plus 0i. Number 16 has the square root of -36, which is like the square root of -1 times the square root of 36, which is 6i, so that makes it a complex number, but it also makes it a pure imaginary because there is not a real part with it. Okay. Number 17 is a very similar problem because it has negative square root. I'm sorry, there's not a negative in front of that. It's just square root of -25, which is equal to the square root of -1 times the square root of 25. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of -1 is I. If you look at 23, it has the negative square root of -18. So that means we have a negative times the square root of -1 times the square root of 18. 18 is 2 times 9, which is 3 times 3. For every 2, we're going to take out 1. So we have this negative, we have a 3, this becomes an I, and we have the square root of 2. On the section with 25 to 36, it says multiply or divide as indicated and simplify your answer. So on 25, you've got the square root of -13 times the square root of -13. If you'll remember from the last chapter when we had square roots, you multiply what's under the square root. So that means we have the square root of -13 squared, which gives us a -13. Some students find it easier to work it like this, as having I times the square root of 13 times I times the square root of 13, which gives us 13i squared. We'll review the powers of I in just a minute, but I squared equals negative 1. So that's 13 times negative 1, which is the same negative 13. Either process is correct, it's just whichever one is easier for you to understand. If you look at one like number 28, it has the square root of negative 5 times the square root of negative 15. This one is usually easier if you'll go ahead and split it up. So that's the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 5 times the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 15. Square root of negative 1 times square root of negative 1 is plain negative 1. Then when we do the square root of 5 times the square root of 15, that's the square root of 75, which is 3 times 25, which is 5 times 5. For every 2, we're going to take out 1, so that's 5 times the square root of 3, but we still have our negative 1, so it's negative 5 square root of 3. If you look at one like number 32, it has the square root of negative 54 over the square root of 27. Remember, when we're dividing, we can put this all under one radical, so negative 54 over 27, which gives us the square root of negative 2. That's the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 2, so that's I times the square root of 2. If you look at number 34, you have the square root of negative 8 over the square root of negative 72. And you can play the same game. That's the square root of negative 8 over negative 72. That will reduce to the square root of 1 over 9, the square root of 1 over the square root of 9. The square root of 1 is 1, the square root of 9 is 3. If you look at 37 through 42, it says to rewrite it in the form of a plus bi. So you've got negative 6 minus the square root of negative 24 over 2. So we need to take care of this part. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Then we have to take care of this part. So we've got minus the square root of negative 24 over 2. Let's address this negative square root of 24 business. That's square root of negative 1 times the square root of 24. But 24 is 2 times 12, which is 2 times 6, which is 2 times 3. For every 2, we're going to take out 1. So that's negative 2i square root of 6 over 2. And then we still have our negative 3 in front. On this, the 2's will cancel, so our final answer is negative 3 minus I square roots of 6. So we now have it in the form of a plus bi. Some textbooks will write it with negative 3 minus the square root of 6i, but standard, this is the preferred format for it. Another one similar to that is number 41, which has negative 3 plus the square root of negative 18 all over 24. So if we do this part, negative 3 over 24 is negative 1/8 plus the square root of negative 18 over 24. When we do the square root of negative 18, that's the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 18, which is 2 times 9, which is 3 times 3. For every 2, we're going to take out 1. So that's 3i square root of 2 over 24. And if you'll notice, the 3 over the 24 will reduce. So that gives us negative 1/8 plus I square roots of 2 over 8. Okay, the next part is combining or adding and subtracting complex numbers. 43 has 3 plus 2i plus 9 minus 3i. Remember, we combine the real parts, so 9 plus 3 is 12, and then combine the imaginary parts. 2i minus 3i leaves a negative I. So that's our answer. If you look at number 46, you've got negative 3 plus 2i minus negative 4 plus 2i. When you have a negative in the middle, when it's subtract, it's best to change the sign. So that would be negative 3 plus 2i minus a minus, so plus 4. Negative times 2 is negative 2i. Combine the real parts, so negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Combine the imaginary parts, which is 2i minus 2i, so that's plus 0i. So then our answer is just 1. That concludes lesson 1.3a, and then we'll see 1.3b